This week in the field, conditions are everything for landscape photography. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome back to In the Field. Thanks for bearing with me for my little hiatus last week. Did finish the draft of the current book I'm working on, so that's been great, but I have some good new footage to share with you this week from a trip that I made to Sunset Cliffs recently. And what made this special, I've been to Sunset Cliffs a bunch of times, I've shared this location with you before, but it's the conditions that I had for this particular shoot. A couple of things came together for this. Number one was a very extreme low tide, about a -1 foot. And so a lot of the cliff areas that are not normally visible became visible. And so, a very different feel to the location. And then number two, I was very lucky to get some great skies, wonderful color. And even at these cliffs, which I'll show you on the maps here in a second, they face to the west. I'm there at sunrise because that's when the tide was really low. I still got, fantastic light. And just, all around, it was a very, very fun shoot. So let's have a look at this on the maps, and then I'll show you some footage from the outing. So here's San Diego downtown, and Sunset Cliffs Park is right over here on this Point Loma Peninsula. Zoom in over here a little bit, and let me switch over to 3D and satellite so you can get a better appreciation for what we have going on here. So kind of zooming all this around, you can see that these cliff faces, they're very steep. So this is a typical sized car, and then you have this large cliff. So these, 60-foot drops in some places. And a few areas, like this large rock and some of these stones, and a few over here are always visible. But I went down this stairwell and walked all along the cliffs to areas. I ended up standing up in and around this rock right here. And all of this area was low, shallow water. And it just, turned into a very, very different landscape that morning. I'm standing at the base of Sunset Cliffs at sunrise, which seems counterintuitive, but the reason for that is extremely low tide. All of these rocks and mosses, and even this big guy here, are usually covered in the tide. The water comes, right up to like this cliff face you're seeing at camera left here. And my intention was to hike out to a sea cave, but I'm not gonna make it there in time for the light. So I'm setting up here and just taking in what's turning into a beautiful sunrise. So I've got the camera mounted up, and right now I don't have any filters on. The light's still very low, metering at about 15 seconds or so at f16 and ISO 50, so the light is still very dim. Tripod legs are buried in the sand. There's not much current here, but there is water moving around. And framing up using this big foreground rock as my main subject, and then the nice backdrop of the mossy green rocks and a gorgeous sky to fill the rest of the frame. I took the first test shot, and you can see that I'm a little bit underexposed. The blues are pretty close to the edge, but the brights are there, a couple of spectral highlights. So I'm actually going to take another shot and just pop the exposure compensation up a full stop and see what that gets me, and take it in from there and just dial it in to get as far to the right as I can before I have clipping. And while the camera's chugging away, taking a couple of long exposures, I'm already feeling the tide rise back up. Low tide was about an hour ago, and so what started at ankle water is already halfway up to my knee. I'm going to start working my way back, but these mossy green rocks are just looking awesome. So I'm going to try to frame up something that accentuates those and tries to give some of the depth, because there are some nice tide pools in between them, like kind of in this center area here. Try to give some foreground, midground, background, using those things to help separate the frame. The sun has finished rising. Some beautiful color in the sky this morning. And I want to keep hanging around, and I keep stopping, and I keep taking more photos, but I need to start getting back because I do not want to be trapped here once the tide starts rolling in. I'm going to grab a couple of more photos and then pack up and get to drier ground. Originally, I'd planned to walk even farther north to access a particular sea cave that is relatively difficult to get to on foot, and I don't have a boat or a kayak. And I didn't quite make it. I underestimated how long it was going to take me to walk what was really only, maybe a quarter mile, maybe a half mile, but the rocks were incredibly slippery. And so it was very slow going. And if I had attempted to keep moving forward and get to the sea cave, besides, I would have been about maybe waist deep water. And that part was okay. The ocean was thankfully warm that morning, but I would have lost the light. And so I decided I'm going to stop where you saw me set up and get my photos. And, well, the next time around when I get these low tide conditions, I can try for the caves. And there's a few other caves to the south as well that, well, it's another adventure that I can look forward to in the future. So this is one of the photos that I came away with. I've processed 3 or 4 of them. And really the tip of the week that I want to share with you is for a photo I'm not going to show you. What happened is I shot a pano, and it was great. It was right at that moment where the sky was lighting up. It had really great color, but I didn't double check my focus points. And I went through the merging and I started, manipulating color, and things felt a little off. When I zoomed in on the foreground, things were soft. They were, actually in some cases really fuzzy. So I did not have my camera focused on the right elements when I was doing the pano. And I remember now being rushed because the light was moving and I was trying to get set up and level the tripod. I like to do that for a pano. And in the end, my rushing, I skipped a step and it cost me what would have been a really, really nice pano. Still happy with the outing. But the tip is make sure you're focusing your camera where it needs to be focused in the frame, especially when you're getting close to something in a foreground. That foreground element got to be sharp. And that does it for this week in the field. Hope you have enjoyed it. And if you did, please consider subscribing to the channel. Send me a comment. Love getting your questions. Questions are great. They are like ideas that I can use for future shows, or to share other experiences with everyone that I've had, or just convey some other cool ideas that you have. And that's kind of the whole point. We get to talk with each other and we all get to become better photographers together. So until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Happy shooting.